Welcome to the Story Lab. Today we look at the Thomas the Tank Engine world. As fans will know, there were 7 so-called classic seasons of the Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends TV show, before the management of the show was changed, and the show took a new direction. Today, we want to add more classic seasons of Thomas. Let's dive into the eras of the Thomas show and point out the differences between eras. The first few seasons were made using model trains. Seasons 1 through 4 adapt mostly stories from the original books. Seasons 5 to 7 were made by the same writers and in the same style, but were all original stories. Seasons 8 to 13 were the new style and character properties under new management. Then followed the CGI series, which arguably was in its own canon, had way more characters and different layouts. All stories in that series were original, written by different writers in different eras. As we said, we want to build upon the classic series, so here are a few bullet points we want to work on. Adapt more book stories. Fit into the first 6 seasons of the show story and format. Come up with a whole season worth of stories that could be produced to revitalize the original Thomas. Open up the possibility for more. We will use the following ingredients, all non-produced Audrey stories. The canon of the later Thomas seasons, which we will not overwrite. The 5-minute episode style. The style of multiple episodes in the same place and the same theme. Using every established character at least once. Let's put it all in and see what happens. The analysis has just been completed. Let's have a look. The new series is called More About Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, which is a play on one of the book titles and fits well with being an insert to the established seasons. Timeline-wise, we are located between around the 5th, 6th and 7th seasons of the show, detailing some of the events in, or rather between these episodes. For example, we will learn more about the process of reopening Toby's old line and establishing the Center Island quarry of the later seasons. From the Audrey stories, we will adapt some of the book stories about the main characters, as well as the entire Mountain Engines book and the miniature railway stories. The season begins with a Thomas episode. Thomas is tasked with bringing some construction material to the north of the island, where the Fat Controller is reconstructing Toby's old line. Once there, the Fat Controller tells him to keep the project a secret to surprise Toby. Thomas feels good about himself for being the one trusted with the secret and makes sure to tell everyone that he has something he cannot tell them about. The other engines get quite annoyed and eventually just stop talking to Thomas, which makes the number 1 engine quite sad. He talks to the Fat Controller, but he only tells Thomas that it is his own fault. Sir Topham Hatt does offer to reassign Thomas somewhere else for a while. Saddened Thomas accepts. He ends up as an auxiliary service on the new Kirk Ronan branch for the next episode. There he gets into a bit of a fight with Gordon. Meanwhile, Percy is asked to take over the service to the construction site at Toby's old line. However, the way there goes through Misty Valley, and Percy is scared of it. In the middle of the valley, he stops and will not move again. His driver and fireman go to search for help, and Percy is stranded. Then, 2 big black monstrosities appear and Percy is even more scared, until he realizes that it is Donald and Douglas who come to rescue him. Donald and Douglas love the mists of the valley that remind them of the Scottish Highlands. They ask if they would take over the services to the construction site, and the Fat Controller gladly agrees. In the next episode, the twins encounter some trouble during the construction and have an adventure. For the 5th episode of the season, we switch back to Thomas, who is happy to accept a special delivery again after spending a lot of time shunting lately. The delivery takes him right to the heart of the island. There he meets the mountain engines from the Coldefell Railway. Thomas is very curious about the strange engines, and they gladly tell their stories. The series now adapts all of the mountain engines' stories, with the framing device of the engines telling Thomas about their adventures. After being so relatively small engine-centered for a while, the season now shifts towards the big engines. We learn that Sir Topham is still trialling various diesel models. It is implied that the visit of the Teething Troubles diesel derrick had taken place recently. Now, the Fat Controller trialed to more diesels. One of the diesels is grumpy, but the other is nice. We are of course adapting the story, Super Rescue, from the book Enterprising Engines. By the end of the story, one diesel has broken down, but the other has proven himself, and is kept on the railway though and named Bear. Following up on Bear's arrival, we adapt all 4 stories from the Railway series book James and the Diesels. While everyone else has accepted the new diesel on the line, James is not so quick to trust him. In the first story, the broken diesel on trial from the previous episode insults the railway and is sent away. Then James has more adventures until he's in a predicament because his boiler water is frozen on a winter's day. The diesel that comes to rescue him is Bear, and thus James learns to accept him. At this point, we get 2 stories playing out at Brendam Docks. The first is about Cranky getting his comeuppance after making fun of Edward. In the second docks-related story, Bill and Ben suddenly show up to work there, and the other engines learn that their China clay quarry had been destroyed in an avalanche. The twins are now working at Brendam permanently, but they cause a lot of trouble, and the other engines at the dock ask the Fat Controller to reassign the small engines. The Fat Controller agrees and sends Bill and Ben to the middle of the island, where they are to help build a connection between all of the quarries at the end of Thomas Line. The goal is to make them all into one big center island quarry. There are 2 stories there. In one, Bill and Ben help take down a wall that after overcoming the fear of causing another avalanche. In the second, the twins try to play tricks on Mavis, their new co-worker, but Mavis outsmarts them, and the twins learn to respect her. We then make a small time jump, in between of which Salty arrived on the island, first worked in the quarry, and was then reassigned to docks where he belonged. When we next visit the docks, Salty is there, and is talking with a new human character. This is the adventurer, who claims that he is a specialist in journeying the seas, trekking through deserts, and climbing mountains. The adventurer has come to Shordor to climb through the mountains in the center of the island and discover new paths. Most engines are very impressed with the adventurer, and everyone wants to take him to the middle of the island. But Salty, who knows how to tell tall stories, convinces everyone to send Daisy with the adventurer, for she has no clue how to get to the center of the island. As it turns out, neither does the adventurer. Daisy and her passenger get quite lost, until Harold is sent to show them the way. The next story still revolves around the adventurer, who is still set on crossing the mountains. He climbs up and predictably gets lost. Sitting there without food, he thinks he will die, until he's spotted by one of the mountain engines, who gladly delivers him some supplies. In the third story about the adventurer, he stumbles upon the old tracks of the Mid-Shordor Railway, and follows them to the Skarloey Railway, where he meets the little engines. Using that as starting point, we spend the next few episodes with the little engines and adapt more of their stories from the books. For the last 3 episodes of the season, we return to Gordon and adapt some stories about him. We adapt High Speed Gordon from Gordon the High Speed Engine, and then add another story from another book, where Gordon is temporarily replaced by Boko as the engine heading the Express. And then for the finale of the season, we finally adapt the story Gordon Goes Foreign, where Gordon can redeem himself by taking a train all the way to London. and with that we already have 26 episodes. But we have not yet done all our ideas. So let's continue with at least a few episodes of what could be the next season of our revived show. We start off with 8 stories about the one new railway that we have not yet introduced, the miniature railway. Adapting all the stories from the first 2 books about them gives us a wonderful start for these new characters in the world, similar to how the Skarloey was introduced in Season 4 of the original show. Then it is time to return to Thomas' line, where Thomas has less and less work. Thomas cannot understand why passengers do not want to come to his railway anymore, and makes a lot of noise about it. But the Fat Controller comes to tell him that he had organized this reduction so that Thomas can take more specials. The specials that Thomas has to take now is a reference to his continued appearances all over the island in seasons 6 onwards. In our series, we use it as an excuse to tell more stories on Thomas's line, adapting the stories from the book Thomas Comes Home, which revolves around Thomas being away and the other engines having to handle his line. After that, there is still a lot we could do both in terms of adapting stories and coming up with new concepts. By this time, we might also have reached the time of Season 7 of the original show, and thus have characters like Harvey, Emily, Arthur, and Murdoch to play with. Okay, that was blast. Let's quickly list all the episodes we came up with for this new classic Thomas season. Thomas' Secret, Thomas at Kirk Ronon, Percy and the Scary Valley, Donald, Douglas, and the Construction Train, Mountain Engines, Bad Lookout, Danger Points, Devil's Back, Super Rescue, Old Stuck Up, Cross Lines, Fire Engine, Deep Freeze, Cranky Gets His Comeuppance, Bill and Ben Cause Trouble, Center Island Quarry, Bill, Ben, and Mavis, The Adventurer Gets Lost, The Adventurer and Skarloey, Patience is a Virtue, Peter Sam and the Prickly Problem, Pop Special, Gordon the High-Speed Engine, Boko and the Express, Gordon Goes Foreign, and more. That was it. Thank you for watching. Please note that everything presented here is simply the results of an experiment. No part of this presentation is intended as a correction of an existing story or claims to be the real story. The selection or omission of any parts of the source material is not to be understood as commentary, positive or negative, on the original productions. These are simply thoughts and experiments based on existing material, and none of it could be created without the work of all those involved in creating the original works. As with any scientific result, you may utilize any of the story ideas that resulted from these experiments for your own experiments or production, while citing this experiment as its source. It is now closing time for our lab. Goodbye until next time.